What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for April 29th, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of the podcast. It is Tuesday. That means it's time for a little motivation / positivity. And we're going to continue our look at the 5 harsh truths that everybody needs to accept in order to become a better person. We've already talked about the first 2. No one is responsible for your happiness except for you. And the number 2, if all of your relationships have the same problems, you're the problem. And we talked about ways to hold yourself accountable, look in the mirror every day, things like that. So let's get into the third one. And this one's going to lead nicely into the rest of the episode. However, the third harsh truth that everybody needs to accept and understand, things never end up as good as you've hoped, but they also never end up as bad as you feared either. So this one really, if you stop and think about it, I can count on 8,000 hands how many times a situation or scenario at work I just prepared for the worst and it never ended up playing out the way it has been. In a personal situation, this is going to be great, and things tend to fall short of those expectations. So it's important to kind of keep that in mind to help keep yourself grounded, because we play out scenarios in our heads for every situation we're in. And a lot of times we hope for the best case scenario. We expect the best case scenario. Chances are a lot of times, and I'm not saying never, but a lot of times the best case scenario never happens, and then we're disappointed. And then at the other level, we work ourselves up so much, stress ourselves out, create health problems to the point where we're expecting this whatever situation to be horrible, and it usually ends up not being that bad. Not saying it's great, but it's never as bad as it is. So I think it's not always a bad thing in that situation to prepare for the worst, but to be prepared for every situation. But I think when you're dealing with expectations of positives, I think you need to kind of balance it out with both. And I think keep yourself even-keeled, even-minded, so that way you're not utterly disappointed when things don't go to the best case that it can go to. And you're not stressing yourself out to the point where you're causing health issues because you're worried about the worst case scenario. So remember, things never end up as good as you hoped, but they also never end up as bad as you feared. And I think that is a very good, solid foundation. And it's really when I try to make decisions and when I prepare for things, it's what I try to do, because it's a good way. Keep yourself even-keeled. And again, like I said, I've been there where it's caused health issues, where I've been so stressed out and worried about something not working out or working out to the worst that it could be. And I've gotten my hopes up so high with things and have been disappointed when they haven't worked out. So I think it's a good way to keep yourself grounded, to remember things don't always work out as good as you hope, but they also usually don't end up as bad as you feared either. So hopefully you can take that truth into your weeks this week. We'll continue with this the next 2 weeks with number 4 and number 5 of the harsh truths that we all need to accept to become better. Hopefully you're enjoying this. Like I said, or getting something out of this. I've been able to take things since we've been doing this, but even previously in my life for the first 2. And this third one is something I always try to live by. People at work, things go wrong. Like the sky is falling. Everybody's freaking out, panicking, getting all worked up. And they're like, why do you seem always so calm? And it's like, because you know what? It's not as bad as it has been. And you draw on past experiences and say, listen, we've been in worse situations and we've gotten through that. Or why are you not as excited as we are about this thing? It's like, because you know what? That's when people are giving you their pitch, they're pitching you the very, very best it could be. The reality is somewhere far beyond that. So you kind of, again, I'm not saying don't get excited about things. I'm not saying don't worry about things. I'm just saying keep things in perspective and you'll be fine. So take that with you on this throughout your weeks, and hopefully you can get something and grow from it. All right, let's start with a recap. Lots of Eagles news today, but let's start with a recap of yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, who was the best third-round draft pick the Eagles have ever made? We had Tommy McDonald, Brian Westbrook, and Nick Foles. Lots of people saying, what are you doing to us first thing on a Monday morning, making us think? I mean, you have a Hall of Famer, you have an Eagles all-time great, an Eagles Hall of Famer, and the Super Bowl MVP for the first Super Bowl in Eagles history. That, to me, I took that as a badge of honor. It was a good question. But 80% of you said Brian Westbrook. I have a feeling a lot of that is due to not being all that familiar with Tommy McDonald's game. Thank you, as always, for participating in the question of the day, but thank you for being smart with this and understanding that Nick Foles is responsible for the greatest moment in Eagles history. But he's not an Eagles all-time great. The rest of his career, other than the 27-2 year, was pretty average at best, below average probably, disappointing even. And it wasn't until he came back that he won the Super Bowl MVP. Again, not besmirching Nick Foles' name because, like I said, he's responsible for my greatest experience, my greatest moment as an Eagles fan was that first Super Bowl, all because of Nick Foles. But is he the best third-round pick the Eagles have ever made? No. I would probably would go slight edge to Tommy McDonald only because I am very familiar with his stats, his career, but I cannot. I'm not mad that you guys chose Brian Westbrook at all. It was one of those things, and again, thank you, and sorry to put you through that on a Monday morning. All right, I'm gonna go somewhere where I usually don't go on this podcast, and I made it a point 2.5 years ago. Closing in very close to 1,000 days straight without missing an episode on this. And I don't want to make things political. And part of that is because, quite honestly, I am not all that versed in politics. It's not something that interests me because I think both sides have major issues. I think both sides have good points. And things like that, but it's not my cup of tea, so to speak, if you will. I vote every time I get a chance, every time an election, local, national, whatever. But when it comes to really discussing it and getting in the weeds with it, it's not my strong suit. And I feel this should be a fun podcast. It's about Philly sports history. You guys aren't tuning in to hear my political takes anyway. However, and I don't want to piss off one side or the other and lose half of my listeners. But I'm going to do something today that probably will piss off both sides equally. So if you're back tomorrow, I appreciate it. But the Eagles did their visit to the White House yesterday to celebrate being Super Bowl champions. And there was a lot of talk about who's going, who's not going. And listen, Jalen Hurts, that was the big name that did not go. Saquon Barkley went. He played a round of golf with the president. He flew on, I don't think it was Air Force One. I think it was the helicopter, whatever. But had the private flight with him. They sat, they chatted, all of those things. Man, everybody needs to take a step back and take a deep breath. You have Republicans ripping Jalen Hurts for not going. You have Democrats ripping Saquon Barkley for going and playing a round of golf with the president. And I look at it like this. Yesterday was not a political event. I watched the video. There was not one thing that was political in there whatsoever. It was to celebrate the fact that the Eagles won the Super Bowl. And I come from an era and a generation where that was a big deal. I remember as a kid not winning championships and being like, man, I think it would be so cool for my team to get invited to the White House, take the tour, meet the president, have the ceremony outside of the White House. And it still is. And no, it doesn't matter what your political beliefs are. This was not a political event. They didn't invite the Eagles there to talk about immigration or the war in Ukraine or anything like that. They invited them there to celebrate the fact they won the Super Bowl. So to make it political is absolutely ridiculous. And to hate on Jalen Hurts for not going, kudos to him for sticking to his beliefs and not wanting to go. Whether or not he had a scheduling conflict or not, okay, so he wasn't there. No big deal. That's what his beliefs were. That was his decision. Kudos to Saquon Barkley for not only going, but playing a round of golf and being able to ride in the president's helicopter. Kudos to him. That is his decision. That is what he wanted to do. It was probably a big honor for him. Am I going to not watch the Eagles because one of them went and one of them didn't? No. I actually watch sports to escape from a lot of the political things that go on. And this is not, listen, I think athletes, it's their duty and their responsibility to speak out and give back to the community, because people do look up to them. I think I'm not one of those shut up and dribble kind of people. No, that is your responsibility. You have a platform. Do whatever you got to do to bring awareness to certain things. Who knows what that conversation on that plane ride was with Saquon and the president? Maybe Saquon was getting in his ear, talking about helping people, that whatever. You don't know that. But I do think, and by Jalen not going, I think it speaks volumes to what his beliefs are, and he's bringing awareness to it. Good. But if you're on the other side, you can't rip the guy for doing what he believes. And then same thing with Saquon. If you're on the other side, you can't rip him because it was his decision. And truthfully, I would have gone to the White House. Like I said, I come from that generation where that's a very cool thing. And as a former social studies teacher, history teacher, the history alone in that building, to be able to be on that grounds is absolutely just like, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. Whether or not you agree with whoever the current sitting president is, that's irrelevant to the point. So I hear people, I won't watch guess what? Don't watch the Eagles then. Whether you're mad at Saquon or you're mad at Jalen, don't watch the Eagles. I have about 25 guys that I'm friends with that would gladly take your season ticket if you're going to get rid of it. I have 4 just in my group that's split that would probably love to get back and have a full season ticket. So it is what it is. And I feel as though we become so soft as a society that we cannot, and this is where I'm probably going to piss people off, and I apologize, but we've become so soft as a society where we can't have debate. We can't have differing opinions. Like, if you don't have the same opinion as me, you're an idiot. And we resort to what my second and third grader do, calling each other names and things like that. Whatever happened to sitting down, talking things out, agreeing to disagree? I mean, and that's why I don't get too political on here, but we've become soft as a society. And the fact of the matter is, it's a cool honor. Everybody, listen, the people that didn't go, that's on them. Like, that is their decision. The people that went, that's on them. That is their decision. It has nothing to do with you. So the fact that people are making it about them, I'm seeing people ripping Jalen Hurts on Twitter. I'm seeing people attack Saquon Barkley on Twitter for making the decision that he wanted to do. You don't know what anybody's going through, what anybody's beliefs are. Like I said, to me, it would be the coolest thing to get an invitation from the sitting president of the United States to visit the White House, to be celebrated for a great accomplishment that I did in my life. And that's what some of those people did. Some of the people like Jalen Hurts who didn't go, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, that's their decision too. They have every right to do that. And it wasn't a political event. The team actually went and visited Arlington Cemetery, saw the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, which to me is one of the coolest things that you could do. Honoring those people who are nameless, who fought for you to have the right to decide whether or not you're going to go to the White House or you're not going to go. It's a pretty cool thing. So that's basically my political. You probably will never hear me do anything political like that again. But it's just ridiculous that people are like feel so strongly about this. And again, you have every right to feel the way you feel. But man, in the big picture, is Jalen Hurts not going to the White House or Saquon Barkley playing a round of golf with the president? Is that really going to make a ton of difference in the world? Probably not. So focus your energy on something else. Like I said, and some of these people, we're blessed from our proximity to Washington. We've probably, everybody out there listening probably at some point has taken a field trip to Washington, D.C., whether it was 5th grade, 8th grade, whatever. Maybe some of the people in Nebraska or from the Midwest never had that opportunity to go. I know Jordan Mailata, who was there, is from Australia. Probably did not take a class trip from Australia to Washington, D.C. So it's just a cool experience. And for everybody to make it political, it's not a political thing. It was a celebration of our Philadelphia Eagles winning the Super Bowl. Enjoy it, man. Enjoy it. Anyway, if you're still listening, let's do some quick housekeeping. Be sure to follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mott on Twitter and TikTok. On Instagram, @PhillyJimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. I can see my YouTube subscriptions rolling backwards as I speak. But continue to spread the word as we try to grow this thing. It's probably going to make it a lot harder to grow after that rant. But sometimes I just got to get it out there. And again, I'm not telling you to choose a side one way or the other. I'm just saying allow these guys to choose their side. Don't forget, on my social media, you can see highlights, clips, photos, clippings, all kinds of whatever you want to see from that. Whatever I'm able to find, I should say. Sometimes the older ones are more difficult to find, but all of that is available on my social media, including my Facebook and LinkedIn. Phil's back in action tonight against the Nationals. A rematch of opening day, Zach Wheeler versus Mackenzie Gore. It should be a good one down at Citizens Bank. Let's hope that they can continue to build on the momentum they had in Chicago, specifically the bullpen. But we'll have all the recap of that tomorrow. It's time for our Tankathon, and it was a good day. Good day for both the Flyers and the Sixers. Flyers moved up to the number 1 pick the second time since we've been doing this. I think we've done about 12 for the Flyers. They've gotten the number 1 pick now 2 times. Sixers moved all the way up to number 3, which I would love. I feel like number 3 is like the sweet spot. Obviously, would love to get Cooper Flagg in here, but Sixers move up to number 3. I think pretty much the pick is made for them. You just, whoever the first 2 guys are, boom, that's who you take. But this is the 3rd time they've moved up to number 3 since we've been doing this. So we'll have another Tankathon simulation tomorrow. All right, be sure to check out my boys over at the Clashing Conferences podcast. Great things happening on their sports fan network. Go to theclashingconferences.com for details on what they have to offer, how you can get involved, and then be sure to check out their podcasts wherever you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. And then it's going to be another beautiful day. Philly Goat has the shirts you need. You want to go apolitical like I tend to do. They have that awesome Fanatic shirt where it's the Democrat donkey, Republican, I guess the Republican elephant, and then the Philly Fanatic with the checkbox. They have all kinds of great things. Get some fans. I'm wearing the Schmitties today. So comfortable. All kinds of t-shirts. Check out the artwork from Jordan Spector. It really is. Just go check out their site. I can't even go into all the detail or else we'd be here all day. Go to Philly Goat, see what they have to offer, do some shopping, and then be sure to use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. And if you're watching on YouTube, I have no idea what's going on with the lighting right now. Oh, there we go. No clue what's going on there. Maybe it's the subscriptions and people subscribing just leaving me. But sheesh. Go to Philly Goat. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. All right, today we're going to go back to 1981. And on this day in 1981, the Phillies beat the Expos 6-2 at the Vet. Gary Matthews, Sarge, went 2 for 3 with a double. Del Unser came off the bench with a pinch hit 3-run double. Steve Carlton pitched a complete game, had 9 strikeouts. Why is this important? Well, Steve came into the game with 2,997 strikeouts. First inning, struck out the side to reach number 3,000. He struck out Tim Wallach to become the 6th player in Major League Baseball history to strike out 3,000 people. He became the first left-hander to do it. Currently, Steve Carlton ranks number 4 on the all-time list with 4,136. He is the number 2 left-hander on the all-time strikeout list behind Randy Johnson. And it was a good week for pitchers getting their 3,000 strikeout, or I guess 2-week span. 11 days prior, Tom Seaver also got his 3,000 strikeouts. So very historic month in 1981 for Major League Baseball pitchers. But the Phillies beat the Expos 6-2 at the Vet. Steve Carlton got his 3,000th strikeout, becoming the first left-handed pitcher to ever strike out 3,000. And a little bonus here today. Meanwhile, while this was going on, the Sixers were playing up in Boston. Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals. They had a 3-1 lead, looking to close out that series and go to the NBA Finals for the second straight year, but they lost 111-109. And why am I bringing this up? Because it was their first of 3 straight losses to the Celtics, blowing a 3-1 lead in the Eastern Conference Finals. Just another disappointing end to the season for the Sixers. And that happened also on this day in 1981. All right, draft week is over, but we're going to continue and finish out the month here today and tomorrow with the best second round and best first round picks in Eagles history. And in the second round, man, the Eagles have had a lot of players with a lot of success. Some of them include Maxie Baughan, who was a linebacker on the 1960 championship team, drafted in 1960. Wes Hopkins, safety, one of my favorites from those Buddy Ryan days, drafted in the second round in 1983. My boy, Randall Cunningham, drafted number 2 in second round in 1985. Then 10 years later, in 1995, the Eagles selected Bobby Taylor out of Notre Dame. And then Sheldon Brown was drafted in 2002. L.J. Smith in 2003. Deshaun Jackson in 2008. Zach Ertz in 2013. And then we have a trio of, or I guess 4 Super Bowl 59 winners who were drafted in the second round. Jalen Hurts in 2020, Landon Dickerson in 2021, Cam Jurgens in 2023, and of course, Cooper DeJean with the pick 6 in the Super Bowl, drafted in the second round last year. So, I mean, that's a who's who right there. But they're not the ones we're spotlighting today. We have some of the all-time greats. We have 2 Hall of Famers, 1 possible future Hall of Famer. More on him in a minute. But let's start in the order of which they were drafted. We'll start with the 1988 draft in the second round out of Arizona State. The Eagles select Eric Allen, one of the best corners in NFL history. Certainly has to be considered one of the best, if not the best, in Eagles history. Played for the Eagles from 88 through 94, 3-time All-Pro, 6-time Pro Bowler. He's on the Eagles All-75th Anniversary team. He's in the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame, the Eagles Hall of Fame, and just recently inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He shares the Eagles' all-time interception crown with Bill Bradley, and somebody we're going to talk about here in a minute with 34. So Eric Allen, 1988 second round draft pick for the Eagles, Hall of Famer, one of my favorites, and he was drafted out of Arizona State, not Notre Dame. Bobby Taylor was Notre Dame. Eric Allen was Arizona State. And then 1996, one of the all-time greatest Eagles ever was drafted out of Clemson in the second round, and that is Brian Dawkins, Weapon X, B-Dawk. He was a 5-time All-Pro, 9-time Pro Bowler. He's on the 2000s All-NFL Decade team. He's on the Eagles 75th Anniversary team. He also is in the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. He's an Eagles Hall of Famer. His number 20 is retired. He is a Pro Football Hall of Famer. He played for the Eagles in Super Bowl 39, famously after they finally beat the Falcons to get to the Super Bowl, picked up the pylon, slammed it down, got on the mic and said, "Hallelujah!" But he also shares the interception lead all-time in Eagles history with Eric Allen and Bill Bradley. Also had the quadrifecta in a game where he recovered a fumble, had an interception, had a sack, and then scored a touchdown on a lateral on a, I believe it was a fake punt I remember being at that game against the Texans in 2002. He's just the GOAT. He was the heart and soul of those Eagles teams. Still a fan favorite to this day. Brian Dawkins drafted in the second round in 1996 out of Clemson. And then our final spotlight in the second round, the greatest running back as of right now. You can say what you want about Saquon's season, but for a career, as of right now, Lesean McCoy is the greatest running back in Eagles history. Drafted in the second round in 2009 out of Pitt. Two-time All-Pro, six-time Pro Bowler. Led the league in rushing in 2013. He's an Eagles Hall of Famer. Has over 11,000 rushing yards in his career, but also could catch the ball. Has, I believe, over 500 catches in his career. 300 of them with the Eagles. Has scored 52 total touchdowns. And this is the thing that got me. I didn't realize this. Career average yards per carry, 4.5. And then, of course, we know he was unceremoniously traded by Chip Kelly for Kiko Alonso. Nobody in Philadelphia liked that trade, but LeSean McCoy, second-round pick out of Pitt in 2009. So there you have it. Lots of great players. And it was tough, to be honest with you, as I was going through the list. Like, I wanted to put Randall on there, but I didn't want to put my personal bias in there. But obviously, two Hall of Famers in Eric Allen and Brian Dawkins, and possibly a future Hall of Famer in LeSean McCoy. Eagles all drafted in the second round. That, though, leads to today's question of the day. Is LeSean McCoy a Hall of Famer? I mean, I think looking at the numbers, I think you have a very, very strong case. 11,000 rushing yards, 4.5 yards per carry, over 500 catches. I mean, he had 54 total touchdowns with the Eagles. I mean, I think you have to make some consideration. Maybe he's not a first ballot, but I think he's a Hall of Famer. What do you think, though? 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. Is Shady a future Hall of Famer? Get that. Anything else Philly sports related off your chest? Want to rip me for ripping you for your takes on Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley? I'll take it. That's completely fine. But is Shady a Hall of Famer? I think we can all agree that yes, he is. On this day in 1981, Phillies beat the Expos. Steve Carlton eclipsing the 3,000 strikeout mark, becoming just the sixth player in Major League Baseball history to do it. The first left-hander. He's currently number 4 on the all-time list, number 2 as a left-hander. One of the greatest in Phillies history, probably the best pitcher in Phillies history. Steve Carlton, lefty, got his 3,000th strikeout on this day back in 1981. We'll have another Tankathon simulation tomorrow. Can the Flyers and Sixers keep the momentum rolling? We'll have a recap of the Phillies-Nats tonight. Let me know your thoughts. I'm anxious to see. Maybe I'm minimizing what this means, but I think to me it's not a political thing. It's all about celebrating the team, man. Just take a deep breath and relax. Remember, as you go through your weeks, to remember I'll get it out. The number 3 harsh truth that we all need to accept: things never end up as good as we hoped, but they never end up as bad as we feared either. So kind of keep that in mind. Keep yourself grounded as you go through your weeks. Hopefully you're still listening, and you'll be back tomorrow. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for April 29th, 2025. My name's Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Tuesday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.